Good day, everybody. It's Crafty Chris here again to go through a couple of short videos helping you organize and work through using up your scrap paper. I just recently finished a whack of invitations for a wedding, and I have a couple of pieces that didn't cut very well, so there's a lot of wasted paper there. And the ones that I did cut well, but obviously I didn't have the size that I could do more than one thing on the page. So there's a lot of waste there. And of course, all the glitter that goes on the invitations as well. And in my book, you can't throw out glitter. You have to keep it and use it on something. So the next 3 series of videos are going to be about what to do with them, how to prepare to get ready to manage them, and how to store them. So I hope you'll join me in the next few videos. Okay, so when I get paper like this that I need to sort of do something with, I have a choice. I can throw it out because it's left over, or I can process it in a way that I can store it and use it for other projects. So technically, I'm a very thrifty crafter. I like to use up what I have and try not to get more if I can avoid it. So I generally will take the larger pieces of a scrap and cut them down into smaller pieces, trying to keep them to a 12 by 12 if possible. And then these will go and be organized by color into my craft scrap container, and that is for large scraps. Smaller scraps I tend to use up by using my punches. So I've got a whole series of punches. I'll just see if I can show you basically what's there. And I use those punches to cut up bits and pieces of paper, and I store them in a file box that is a 4 by 6 photo file box. So it looks something like this. And inside the photo box, I have color divided and paper divided bits of scraps. So on this side, I've got my cardstock scraps, and on this side, I've got my pattern paper scraps. And I've just recently done a whole whack of bits and bobs using my punch on this paper for the smaller pieces. So before I put anything away, this is my last step in a project, is to get all those small little scraps cut up into little pieces and put into the containers. All of my crafting stuff, with the exception of a few collections, are stored by color. I have buttons here that I have also stored by color. This one is my naturals, whites and blacks. And I try to put my buttons in the sections that are as close to the color as possible. I have another, this one is for ribbon and bits and pieces of things that I can use for tying. This one isn't as much in color. I still have to go through this and rework this. This was how I used to store things. But I use that for ribbons and things that I can put on tags and things that I create with the small pieces of the paper. This is another thing that I got for borders and larger pieces of paper that I didn't have any ideas for at the time. So you'll notice it's like a it was a Timothy's coffee thing, and it's perfect for 12 by 12 paper strips. So I've got all these paper strips, thin and thick, not sorted by color, but they're there so I can pull them out and go to my sorted by color containers to pull out other things. This is for larger pieces. And things that aren't 12 by 12 inch long slips. And then this is a second drawer of some of those things. So these pieces that I've cut here would go into these drawers for use later. And then this top one is things that I've been cutting that I might want to keep. So I have a bunch of stuff that I had used for a project, but I had more than I needed. This kind of came out of the inside of a tag that I cut with a die, and it was kind of interesting, so I thought I might hang on to that. And then this is the outer edge of that. So it kind of looks like it might be interesting to use as a frame. I do have a couple of frames that came in a kit that I wasn't using. So they're two-sided, so those are kind of things I can use. I just kind of like this. I thought I might actually use this as a mat and maybe do some stenciling or something through it. Same with that. And then there's more of those hearts. And then this was a heart that came in a kit that I wasn't ready to use. So it ended up in here, but I think I'm going to move that to a different section of my storage units where I have a lot of die cuts and embellishments of a theme. So I'll show you that in a later video. So for now, working on the scraps, as I said, have created a bunch of cutoffs using the paper that is cutoffs from the project. One of the things I did was I ended up with this, but there was an error in cutting. You can see the bottom, and I don't want to get rid of this because I want to use this bit of paper, but I was thinking I could also use the outside edges. So what I did was I fussy cut the outside edge off, and now I have, let me get this out of the way, two pieces that I can use for a card. I can use both pieces for a card as, you know, like a family card or something, or I can just use one piece on a card and just say, you know, maybe have it as a fall theme or a spring theme, and maybe put a little bunny under it for Easter. So those miscuts I am going to turn into tree embellishments to be used for cards or even layouts, layering and layouts. So that's one way I used the excess paper. As I said, the larger pieces, I just keep them because I can make card bases out of these. So one card base that I've been working on with some pieces of this collection that I had for the wedding invite was this congrats card. So all I did was cut the strips off, and that's what I would do. I would sit and cut all these little bits of strip off and put them in a container by color and use them as geometric shapes for cards. This is a graduation card, happened to have some gold letters, so I put congrats on there. And this is just a circle that's been folded into a flower shape and a circle cut. So I have a bunch of circles that I cut previously out of the gold paper and stored. So I pulled them out, and now I've got like this little pop-up card, very simple to do, with the circles, and on the inside, this isn't finished yet, I would put the sentiment. But it's kind of a neat little card, and an easy way to use your circles. And anything that is symmetrical can be used in this way to create this sort of pop-up bit. So that, but the background is definitely the cardstock that I had from that project, and it makes a kind of a nice little card. I don't necessarily suggest that at the end of every project you sit down and make cards from your materials. The larger materials can sit in your storage and you can use them up as you need to. But for sure, the little bits and pieces that you get that are offcuts, you want to make them into shapes that you can store and pull out to create things. So let's talk a little bit about creating things.